What's up everybody? Welcome back to what is another video on my channel. I am super excited for today's video because it took me 3 days to prepare for this video. Today we are going to be making sourdough bagels. Yes, sourdough bagels. This recipe makes about 6 to 10 bagels depending on how big and how small you shape them. I like to make them super big and fluffy so I can get a good 7 bagels out of this recipe. I will link down below who I first saw this recipe originate from, so if you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. But without further ado, let's just jump right into this. Okay, so you will obviously need your sourdough starter that is active, and I'm hoping to get about 200 grams of starter out of this. If not, we'll see, but I think we'll make it. It's going to be extremely useful to have a KitchenAid stand mixer or any stand mixer with a dough hook attachment, and you'll see why. It is a lot of dough and it is very it's very strong, so you want to make sure you have enough power to mix it and incorporate it all together. It's going to be 200 grams of starter. Next, you're going to want to add 400 grams of water. Make sure it is room temperature so you'll tear up the scale. I'm using a dough whisk, but you don't have to use this. You can just use anything to whisk it that you have. Next, you're gonna wanna add 20 grams of honey. I'm just using this honey from Trader Joe's. So again, clear out your scale, and we will go ahead and add 20 grams. Next, we'll add 16 grams of salt. Now go ahead and give that a good whisk. Now I will say this recipe does require a lot of flour, so we are going to be adding 800 grams of bread flour. Alright, and this is why having a dough whisk is so important, because this is so much batter and dough that it's going to take quite some time and strength to get all of this incorporated. So luckily this is going to do all of the work when it comes to mixing the flour in. You just want to make sure we have it on low speed. Just a little tip for when your flour is throwing everywhere, you can just add a little kitchen cloth on top to make sure it doesn't make a huge mess. Okay, so once it's done mixing, it's gonna look something like this. It's a very thick consistency dough. And now would be the time to add in any of your inclusions. So if you want to do cheddar cheese bagels, if you want to do cinnamon bagels, or if you want to do chocolate chip bagels, whatever it is that you're wanting to do inside of the dough, now would be the time to hand include them. So that would mean stretching this out and folding in all of your stuff by hand. Okay, I just kind of took all of the dough out, and I'm just gonna form this little ball, put it right back in the bowl, and we're gonna just want to cover it with a damp rag or kitchen towel for 30 minutes. If you don't have this, you can also just use saran wrap. But what you don't want to do is leave it uncovered, because it's going to dry out the dough. Now that it's been about 30 minutes, this is what your dough is going to look like, and we're going to put it on a clean surface, and we're just going to knead it for about 3 to 4 minutes. So now we'll just set our dough nicely back in the bowl, and we're gonna cover it again with this damp rag, and we're gonna leave it for 6 to 8 hours. All right, so it's been about 8 hours, and this has just been setting at room temperature. And as you can see, it is more than doubled in size. So it has this like bouncy texture. All we're gonna do now is, you might wanna re-damp this cloth, cover it up again, and we're gonna put it in the fridge overnight. So I know it's a lot of days going into making this, but honestly, it's just mostly a lot of waiting around. It's not a lot of prep work. Okay, it's officially day 3, the finale. I'm super excited to show you how this has proved overnight. See, I just took it out of the fridge. I did end up putting saran wrap over it in the middle of the night because I didn't want it to dry out. So here it is. Here is our dough, completely proofed and ready to be shaped. Okay, so I went ahead and I emptied the bowl onto a clean surface. You don't even need flour to do this, but here's what we're working with. We're going to try and just roll this out. You don't want to completely flatten it, but you do want to make sure we have as much of it pin rolled out as possible. So you kind of direct it with your hands like that, and then you're going to take a pin roller. This is going to be really helpful, and then you're just going to start rolling out the surface. Okay, so now it's time to shape our bagels, which can be kind of a tedious part for some people depending on how you do it. I know there is a few different techniques, but I'm just gonna really quickly show you one way that I use. So here's one I've already shaped. We'll just set that aside. Here's another. You're just gonna take your bench scraper, do about 2 finger widths. You can use a knife if you don't have a bench scraper. We're gonna fold that in half, and we're gonna just pinch these seams together, and you're gonna start rolling. Once you're done pinching all of the seams together and roll, and make sure that no seam is left undone, because once we throw these in to get boiled, if there's any seams that are not completely seamless, then it's just going to expand in the water, and the bagels are going to look a little bit funky. They won't be perfect, that perfect bagel shape. So once you're doing this, you're just going to loop these around. And tie it together. And then there you have your little round bagel. You want to turn it over and pinch these seams together as well, just to make sure that everything is going seamlessly, and it is a perfect bagel shape. Okay, so the next thing you're gonna wanna do is get yourself a pan, a baking pan, parchment paper, and spray it with cooking spray. And I just used my bench scraper to help scoop it up from the counter. And then you're just gonna carefully, they could be a little sticky, so just you wanna carefully place it on top of the parchment. And since these ones are so thick, you can see the holes are already wanting to close. So once you place them on here where they're gonna proof, you're gonna kind of want to open up the holes a little bit. And then again, right before you boil them, you can just open these a little wider. But they are going to naturally want to close. Okay, so now you're gonna wanna take your damp washcloth again, and you're just gonna place this over the bagels. And now these are gonna sit and proof rise for 2 to 3 hours. They can rise and double in size just a little bit. They shouldn't too much, but depending on how hot it is in your house, it could go a lot faster. So you wanna just keep an eye out on them. It is a little bit warm here, so these might get a little bit faster. So we'll just keep an eye on those. So you're gonna wanna go ahead and boil them 1 minute on each side. So I kind of just scoop it up in my hand like this, and I'm gonna just throw it on top of the ladle. And then you slowly let it float around. Depending on the size, you probably do 2 at a time. This one's a little smaller. And then after the 1 minute, you flip it over and you do it for another minute. Okay, so you're gonna wanna make sure that you boil all of them, because this is what is gonna set the crust and give it that glossy, chewy, crunchy texture that a bagel is known for. So once these are all boiled, you can either just pop them right in the oven like this and have a plain bagel, or you can add toppings. So I'm just gonna add what I had on hand, but a famous one would be to add something like Asiago cheese, or some people add cheddar cheese. You can add pretty much any cheese that you would like, or any toppings that you would like as well. So again, all of the toppings will be added right after they're getting done being boiled. And then I'll go ahead and add some of this, let's see, Trader Joe's everything but the bagel seasoning. Be careful with this because it can be super salty, so you don't want to add a whole ton of this one. And now that they are all ready to go, you're just going to bake them in the oven at 425 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes. Make sure you keep an eye on them, because depending on the size and how big or small you shaped them to be, it could be less time or longer time. Okay, so the bagels just got done, and this is what we're working with. These baked out absolutely perfect. I went ahead and let them cool for about 45 minutes, and they are literally perfect.